move a bit. Imagine the last time you got a phone call from the kita or from school saying your kid is sick. It doesn't matter how busy your calendar is. You have your priorities set straight. Imagine now that we are already at a point where AI understands your priority, where it knows exactly what's important for you. It knows how to write a message to communicate to all those meetings that you're about to miss out and to reschedule them. And all of that seamlessly without you actually having to struggle and decide what your priorities are. So it actually happened to me twice this week already because one of the twins was sick and I had to go pick them up. And it's possible with technology today, not yet for me privately, but it is possible with technology. I'm Ravina. I'm a co-founder at Enterprisebot. I've been in the world of AI, natural language processing specifically, for the last 10 years, actually this year, so I started in 2014. And my goal is to really make sure that I can spread as much information as possible about what's possible in AI, especially with generative AI, which has, of course, been probably on top of a lot of lists here. I've lived in Switzerland now for about 7 years, aber ich kann nicht Deutsch, nicht so gut. I sit in a lot of meetings where everybody speaks German and I can reply in English, so I understand enough. I'm not bored today. I understood everything you said about Calenso. But yes, we are very much Swiss-based. Now, to really talk about AI, I know Marvin mentioned the Klarna case already. Maybe you guys already read about it in the news. Yes, I mean, the hype is getting real. Klarna already talked about how they might lose 700 employees. It's not the first time they've done this. So there is a lot of skepticism as well around this about, how good is it really? Are you actually able to kind of serve 2/3 of your contact center? I even got a call privately last week from a customer of ours who's exactly a competition to Klarna in Germany, buy now, pay later, saying, we need to act fast. What's going on? They're already hitting the news. We need to be first. The fact is, whether or not it's a hype, maybe it's a pre-IPO thing because they're going into IPO soon. Whatever it is, the fact is that Gen AI is here to stay. So it is going to change our lives in the near future. And everybody wants a piece of it as a company, small, medium, or large. Now, when you go to actually look for a Gen AI solution, an enterprise-ready Gen AI solution, that's a little bit of what the market looks like. So it's difficult to tell, where should you actually start? What use case, what company, how do you choose? And the fact is, so far, bots have really not lived up to their promise. So in the past, pre-Gen AI, pre-ChatGPT, you might be aware of how you found every possible reason to get a contact advisor, not that bot again, not that pushy thing that comes up, because, that's how it has been traditionally. So when you think about bots, omnichannel, either they were really intent-based, where you have many, many employees. Funny, right? It's AI and you have to hire 20 employees to actually take care of the AI that you're building. So very manual, writing down intents one by one, training the bot. Or option 2, which is really flow-based, which means that you have very static flows. In claims, for example, you have an FNOR request, but the bot has no intelligence in the back. It's really, kind of very guided and, not very AI-based. Now, the fact is that with Gen AI, you can create personalized, scalable use cases which actually don't require that kind of maintenance. You don't need to train the AI. You get the AI to actually work to make things better. We know this from personal experience. So we've been now with Enterprisebot specifically for the last 7 years, built several enterprise-ready bots. But what really stood out is the difference in the customer satisfaction. So when you actually look at the NPS scores with these older intent-based models versus the newer Gen AI-based, and of course it has to be secure, all of that given, you see a stark improvement in the amount of positive feedback. In traditional methods, it's no matter how hard you try, how many intents you build, you always saw people writing more negative comments than positive. So at the end, when you have the 3 smileys, when you close the chats, the amount of negative smileys was always more than 2 times more of what the positive ones were. that's changing very quickly. Today, people can actually relate to the fact that the bot understands you, that it's able to have empathy, it's able to be contextual, so you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again. And on the whole, it just increases NPS drastically. We talked about this as well earlier. We saw when Marvin mentioned a couple of times about omnichannel. I think one of the key things is that you need to have a single AI brain that can actually power all of your omnichannel requirements. So whether that's, I'll talk a little bit about use cases later as well, but whether that's internal, whether that's external, you need something that's constantly getting better, that's learning, and that can be centralized, basically. So whether that's live chat, chatbot, email, voice, and most importantly, flows automation. So that's something that I'll also get to soon. It's important that you can actually kind of have a rounded strategy. Now, when you look at generative AI, what's important is that it's continuously learning. So whether it's about, a calendar bot, as we talked about, it needs to know from your preferences, from your actions, what you are doing and get better with it. Of course, it needs to increase efficiency. It needs to kind of make sure that you're really being able to act productively, use your time exactly where you should use your time. And it needs to make sure that it takes into account automation. I think this is the theme of today. It's important that any conversational AI is always coupled with automation. Otherwise, you're leaving your end customer with a poor customer satisfaction, again, where you're just giving them static answers and telling them to go to our website, call a helpline, send an email, and actually, get their answer. Of course, I already mentioned this before, you have a lot of accuracy with the newer models. So you don't have to look for numbers like 70%, 80%. You can really get bots that understand you more than even 95% of the times. What's important when it comes to automation is having kind of a low-code, no-code tool where you don't necessarily need developers for every little thing. Of course, you are going to have legacy systems. You are going to have the problems that your systems might not be ready. But at the same time, you need a tool that's really talking to the conversational AI, Gen AI piece, and connecting it to your existing systems. Now, this can be via APIs, it can be via RPAs, it can be, custom code, but it needs to be something that's easy to understand for a business person who understands the logic of how an API is built, but doesn't need to be like a developer, so to say. This is where, when you talk about Enterprisebot and Calenso, I think together we can really make this magic happen, because we can go beyond just understanding that you need an appointment for a sales request or for a contact center or HR process, but you can actually book this appointment, have the communication end-to-end, understand the hierarchies of a person, and automate, basically. So really where conversational AI, omnichannel meets automation, and you can kind of have the end-to-end process. Now, specifically when you talk about Gen AI use cases, the biggest one that we see today is actually around knowledge management. So especially when it comes to, the risky generative AI, nobody wants to be the ones with the bad press. So we're seeing more and more that internal use cases are taking a lot more importance. So with knowledge management specifically, you can have a bot that connects all of your internal services. You might have Confluence, you might have SharePoint, PDF documents. There's no structure necessarily. Here, bots can really kind of help you bring all of that together in one universe and have your employees ask questions about any topic, whether that's IT, HR, etc., in one single bot. Then, of course, comes contact center automation. Those repetitive questions that come into customer service departments, FAQs, but more than FAQs as well. That's where we really see a lot of potential. Then we have insights and analytics. So you have a lot of historic data. You have call recordings from many, many years. You want to be able to understand what is it that your users are calling you for, because it's even better if you can actually predict that and you can actually then prevent all of those calls from coming in. So these analytics are something that Gen AI can really help with. Then, of course, comes the key part about employee experience and agent productivity. Whether this is in contact center, whether this is HR or IT, you can very easily have a generative AI that can assist your employees in real time, give them the next best action as they are on a call or writing an email, so that they can be very efficient and very personalized. Then, of course, marketing automation and content creation. I'm sure a lot of you might have used this to build PowerPoints. I surely get some advice from ChatGPT every now and then. That's quite a big use case as well. And then lastly, really having this conversational interface to core systems. So if you want to be able to query core systems easily, especially as a business person, you could actually use generative AI to kind of build that out. Now, all this has been talk so far, so I think it might be more interesting to actually see some case studies where it's actually, working today in production. So I would like to start with a voice bot. Can probably speak a little better Swiss German than me. Might be. Okay.
Guten Tag, ich bin Eva, der virtuelle Assistent von IT-Support. Bevor ich Sie mit einem IT-Support-Mitarbeiter verbinde, benötige ich Ihre Enterprise-Bot-Mitarbeiter-ID.
Ja, das wäre EB2701.
Danke. Ein IT-Support-Mitarbeiter wird Ihnen gleich weiterhelfen.
Guten Tag, da ist Anna von der IT. Einen Moment bitte.
Ja, hallo Anna.
Hallo Martino, wie alt kann ich dir heute behilflich sein?
Der Drucker, den wir hier im Büro haben, geht nicht mehr gut.
Druckerproblem. Ah, ja, die kennen wir doch alle. Einen Moment bitte, ich schaue schnell, was ich da machen kann.
Ja.
Alles klar, es gibt da einige Möglichkeiten, aber ich glaube, das Gescheiteste wäre, wenn wir zusammen einfach mal die Fehlersuche anfangen. Und zwar würde das bedeuten, dass ich als erstes von Ihnen gerne eine Testseite gedruckt haben müsste. Wissen Sie, wie das geht?
Mhm. Nein, kannst du mir helfen? Wir können gerne duzen, wenn das für dich noch nicht ist.
Das ist für mich super. Ich habe es ja eh schon gemacht. Und ja, natürlich kann ich helfen, für das bin ich da.
Gut.
Also, müsste ich zuerst mal wissen, welche von diesen Druckermodellen da betroffen sind.
So we don't need to go through the entire 4 minutes, but the technology is here. So it's able to understand you in your Swiss German dialect. It's able to help the agent. So the first part was actually a voice bot that could authenticate the user so that the agent doesn't need to spend time actually doing this activity. The customer is already authenticated, so the agent has a history in front of them saying, this is the person. And then the bot is smart enough to know, for example, which bureau, which office they are in, so that when they're actually troubleshooting this, it's always the printer. When they're actually fixing this printer, they know exactly which models are available. So you can actually have full control over how this entire interaction takes place. The agent doesn't have to leave their workspace. So even though it's advanced AI, it can be embedded in the tool that the agent is used to. So in this case, that's Genesis, but it can be any other tool as well. And the fact is that this really can help tremendously kind of save time. So we recently did a POC with a leading Swiss call center company. So it's a B2B case. And they gave us a target that we need to reduce the average handling time that an agent takes by 15%. We were able to reduce it by 63%. So that's really where the technology is at today, because the fact is that some of these interactions do take much longer than they should. And a lot of these employees are spending a lot of time doing tasks that they don't enjoy doing, but they have to do. So that was a case for voice, agent assist and voice bot. But you can also apply this in other cases, such as, for example, email automation. So when you take the case of SIX, the stock exchange, We've been working with them for the past about 4 to 5 years on various tasks. But imagine that all of the emails that come to SIX Financial Information would go through our AI. The AI is able to understand the email. It's already integrated into APID, into their ticketing tool, BMC Remedy. And it's able to not only kind of help you with the prioritization, sending it to the right person, but it can also generate, and more so with generative AI, all of these email drafts which are very, very personalized, which are ready just for a human in the loop, because today most enterprises don't want the AI to do things end to end, but you can actually just have everything prepared for the agent so that they just say yes and that's it. Your task is already done. And here we see a massive reduction in the amount of tickets that these companies get using AI. Now, if you look at really a project approach of what you need to kind of implement this kind of Gen AI, conversational AI, it's always the right mix of human and AI to kind of make these things work. It doesn't have to be a huge project with millions invested over 2-3 years. Even if you have an IT SPOC and a subject matter expert, either from contact center, sales, HR, whatever your use case is, it is possible to already start something. So what's very important is that you identify the right use case. So it has to be something that is fairly repetitive, that costs a lot, or that uses a lot of valuable time, and hopefully has a big automation potential. It's important that you're able to service things end to end for the customer. Then, of course, you need to make sure that the user experience is right. Whether that's by embedding the AI within the tool that the person is used to, or using a website, for example, or WhatsApp, wherever your customer is. We've seen projects where our customers, because they're sometimes scared to implement AI, implement it on small microsites or intranets that are not used very frequently. That doesn't give a very good experience, because you also don't have enough data to retrain the AI and to make it smarter. It's also important to kind of choose the right platform, of course, but also to kind of start small and be realistic. So AI is not just a magic bullet where you just say, okay, I'm going to spend millions and tomorrow I'm going to get everything changed. It really does require some time, it requires some results, and it requires a meaningful roadmap which you can draw up over the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But it needs to start somewhere, and it needs to start somewhere where you can really kind of drive value and see some early results. What we suggest you should look for is, firstly, most important, is flexible Gen AI. I'm in the AI space, and even for me to keep up, my slides are getting obsolete every 3 days because things are changing every day. So before it was only, Azure GPT, then we had the wave of banking customers telling us we want only Llama 2, we need all of the hardwares, we need to implement something that's fully on-premise, it needs to be our own, we don't want to use anything external. And now everybody's talking about Claude 3 by Amazon Bedrock, for example. You need to be able to have a tool that you can really scale. So, of course, you have the 3 hyperscalers, and it's very tempting to get into a long-term contract with this. But you have to be mindful of the fact that different use cases might require different AIs. So maybe in the medical use cases, you might have Google that's better, for example, or you might have Azure that's better in financial services. You need to be mindful that things will change very quickly. Then it's important to have a universal agent as well, where you can reuse some of the things that you've done, for example, on chat as a channel or voice as a channel. Here I can give you a practical example of Generative, for example. They've been our customers for the last 5 years. We started really with email automation because that's where their traffic was, that's where all their customers were reaching out. We built out some end-to-end process automation like green card requests. So if an email comes in asking for a green card renewal, our bot understands it, but it also triggers a job request for their UiPath robot, which can then actually execute on ordering this green card. What's important is that we started with email as a channel, but we need to actually have the same experience on chat and on voice as well. So we just reused everything that we had built from an integration perspective to these other channels. And then, of course, lastly, it's all about compliance, data security, GDPR. It's important that you are using AI that's not using, for example, private data. It's not using the data to actually retrain their models. You have a lot of security as to whether they would delete this data after it's been used after a certain amount of time. So those are things that, of course, you have inbuilt with a lot of the solutions, such as Azure GPT. So most of our customers would interface with Azure GPT rather than OpenAI directly for these reasons. Data residency is very important as well. So all of the data needs to be hosted, for example, in Switzerland or in the EU region. So those are really kind of key things to look out for when you start on your GenAI journey. Now, GenAI is here to stay. So I think it's time for everybody to kind of embark on this kind of journey because it is something that's going to change our lives as we know it. So thank you for listening.